The smell of rain on hot asphalt always hit different when you were angry, like the earth was trying to cool you down before you did something reckless. I stood on the porch of 402 Maple Drive with the HOA notice rolled tight in my fist. Cicadas screamed in the trees, a loud, steady buzz that matched the pressure behind my eyes. Rosemary Adams had been my neighbor long enough to keep a file on me, noise parking fences. This time, Samir Smith, HOA president, had paperclipped her a fresh weapon, immediate compliance, or a $500 fine. I knocked 3 hard raps on glossy black paint. I expected the blazer, the perfect hair, the posture that said my boots were a personal offense. The door swung open, and she didn't block the way. She stepped back like she'd forgotten her own threshold. "We need to talk about the," I started. The words died. From the street, her house looked like a magazine cover. Inside, it looked like someone had erased a life. No furniture, no rug, no framed photos. Just plywood subfloor, bare studs where baseboards should be, and a single deflated air mattress in the middle of the living room, like an apology. A red bucket sat under a dark, sagging stain in the ceiling. Water dripped into it. Plink, plink. Rosemary stood there in an oversized t-shirt and gym shorts, hair loose and tangled eyes wide with the kind of panic that didn't belong in a neighborhood with matching mailboxes. She followed my stare to the bucket, then snapped her gaze back to my face. Color climbed her cheeks. "We forget this ever happened," she said low and fast. "Deal." The ceiling bulged like it was holding its breath. I exhaled through my nose. Deal. Her shoulders loosened by a fraction. Then another drop hit the bucket. Plink. But I added and tipped my chin toward the stain. "Your ceiling is going to come down if you keep letting it drink." "I have a contractor coming," she said too quickly. I didn't argue. I just looked at the waterline creeping, her mouth pressed into a thin line. "Fine, I don't. I'm handling it." "You're not," I said. Flat. The same tone I used when a client tried to sell me particle board as hardwood. That's an upstairs supply leak, not a roof. If that drywall gives, you'll get mold and rot, and Samir will smell it. At the mention of Samir, her hand tightened on the door edge, knuckles pale against black paint. "This is none of your business, Mr. Gomez. It's Jake." I lifted the HOA notice, then lowered it. "I came here ready to fight about a fence. I can't do that while your house is quietly failing." Her eyes narrowed like she was measuring cost and risk. "If you step inside, you keep your mouth shut. About everything." "Deal," I said again. I stepped over the threshold before she could change her mind. Inside smelled damp and empty wet wood and stale paint. I set my tool bag down and studied the stain. It had been spreading for weeks. From my pocket, I pulled my moisture meter. I pressed the prongs into the drywall. The meter chirped and jumped. Rosemary's eyes flicked to it, then away. "Maxed out," I said. "I can't afford a plumber," she snapped. The words came out sharp, but her throat worked like she'd swallowed something hot. I nodded once, like that fact was a bolt I could tighten. "Then we do the first thing that costs nothing." We stopped the water. Her jaw tensed. "You're not." "I am." I found the utility closet without asking. Houses in this neighborhood were built from the same blueprint. I shut the main, then opened the upstairs tap to bleed pressure. When I came back, she was still standing in the empty living room, arms folded like she was holding herself together by force. "Upstairs bath?" I asked. She gave a stiff nod. I took a flashlight, climbed her stairs, and listened. Quiet hiss behind tile. The sound of a small failure trying not to get caught. I pulled the access panel behind the shower valve and shined my light on copper. A pinhole leak, green bloom around it. I didn't say I told you. I wrapped a towel around the pipe, wiped it clean, and took a photo. "What are you doing?" she asked from the doorway. "Proof," I said. "If someone tries to claim you made it up, you show them the corrosion and the repair." No guessing, no arguing. Her shoulders lifted, then fell. I opened my tool roll on her bare floor like a surgeon setting a tray. Pipe cutter, emery cloth, flux, torch, coupling. "I'm cutting back to clean copper," I said. "If you solder on rod, it fails. We do it once." She stayed quiet, but she didn't leave. I drained the line, cut out the bad section, cleaned the pipe until it shined, brushed on flux, then sweated the new coupling on. The solder flashed silver and set clean. "Turn the main back on," I said. Her hand hovered over the valve like it could bite. Then she turned it. No drip. My shoulders didn't rise in celebration. I just watched for 10 seconds. Then 10 more. "Okay," I said. A breath left her chest, like she'd been holding it all week. I went back downstairs and looked at the sagging ceiling. "This comes down today," I said. I didn't ask for money." I pointed toward my driveway through the window. "I've got drywall left from the Peterson job. Joint compound. Screws, I patch it. You withdraw the fence complaint." "You make it sound easy," she said. "It's not easy," I replied. "It's just doable." I ran a stud finder, marked joists, and cut a clean rectangle. Wet gypsum fell in heavy clumps. I bagged it. I checked the joist with an awl. Damp but solid, not spongy. If it had been soft, this wouldn't be patching. This would be rebuilding. I set a fan in the opening and aimed it into the bay. "Overnight," I said. "Dry first, patch after, paint last." Rosemary nodded once. Small, controlled. At the threshold, I paused. "Why no furniture?" I asked, because the question had lodged in my throat. Her eyes flashed, then dimmed. She reached for a manila envelope on the floor like it weighed too much. "The divorce orders froze my accounts," she said. "Temporary, court-stamped, my cards, my business line, everything that wasn't nailed down." She slid out the top pages and held them up, not like she wanted me to read every word, but like she needed me to see the stamp and the dates. The paper edges were wrinkled where her fingers had gripped them too hard. "Public record," she added, voice clipped. "So if Samir decides to be curious, he doesn't need to guess." I took the pages long enough to see the seal and the bank letterhead. Then I handed them back. Her hand shook once as she tucked them away. "He got the liquid assets," she said. "I got the house and the debt. I'm supposed to renovate and sell. That's how I survive this. And right now, you can't even buy a faucet," I said. Her throat moved. She reached into the envelope again and pulled out one more sheet. Not a court doc. An email printout. The headers showed a company name I recognized from the City Hawthorne Collective. They took on boutique projects, bought design rights when they wanted to swallow smaller names. The subject line was simple: offer to acquire Adam's studio name and portfolio rights. She held it up for half a second, then folded it back like it burned. "A mentor forwarded it," she said, eyes sharp with something like anger. "They offered to buy my brand. My name, my portfolio. Cheap." "Why print it?" I asked. "Because I don't trust my email," she said. "I don't trust anything digital right now." Her mouth tightened. "And because I wanted to remember what it feels like to be insulted." "You said no," I guessed. Her chin lifted. I said no. I'm not selling my name like it's an old chair. Silence stretched between us. Cicadas screamed outside like they were cheering for nobody. I nodded once. Not approval, recognition. "I'm done for today," I said. "Keep the fan running, and don't open that ceiling bay to anyone without paperwork." Her eyes narrowed. "You're giving me rules now. I'm giving you protection," I said. She didn't thank me, but her shoulders dropped enough to tell me she heard it. The next morning, I loaded a half sheet of drywall, a bucket of compound, and a gallon of Builder White into my truck. The sky was already bright heat pressing down early. I wore a gray t-shirt because it was going to be a long day and I didn't have time to care. I knocked. The door opened, and I froze for a different reason. Rosemary stood in the doorway in jeans and a fitted white scoop-neck t-shirt, hair down in loose waves, like she'd decided not to apologize for looking like herself. No blazer, no armor, just her. Her eyes met mine. Not flirty, not shy. Calm, evaluating. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she lifted one brow. "We're still forgetting what you saw yesterday." I shifted the drywall on my shoulder, pretending it suddenly weighed more. "I'm here to keep your ceiling from falling on you." The corner of her mouth moved like she was fighting a smile. I stepped inside. The fan still hummed. The ceiling bay felt dry under my palm. I cut a patch, backed it with cleats, screwed it in, taped the seams, and ran the knife across the mud in long, clean strokes. Feather the edges. No ridges. No drama. Rosemary hovered near the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. "You do that like you've done it 1,000 times, she said. "I've done it 1,000 times, I answered. Her gaze tracked my hands, then flicked away like she didn't want to be caught watching. When the first coat set, I sanded it, smooth-wiped dust with a damp rag, and rolled paint until the ceiling looked like it belonged to the room again. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said, quieter. "I do if I want you to stop trying to get my fence torn down," I said. "I already withdrew it," she replied. She walked to the hall, grabbed her laptop off the floor, and turned it toward me. An email to Samir. Withdrawal. Time-stamped. My shoulders eased a fraction. "Good," I said. Her chin lifted. "Now we're even." "Not yet," I said, and nodded at the front door. "Your latch is sagging. That's why it sticks. If you keep forcing it, you'll split the jamb." She stared at me like I'd insulted her personally. "It's fine." I opened and closed the door once. The scrape was obvious. Her nostrils flared. I took a screwdriver, reset the strike plate, shimmed it, tightened hinges. 30 seconds. The door closed with a clean click. Rosemary looked at the latch, then at me. Her shoulders squared like she'd decided something. "How do you see that I look?" I said. "Then I fix." The answer didn't soften. It didn't need to. 2 days later, I was in my driveway, ripping walnut for a dining table commission. The sawdust smelled sweet and dark, the kind that clung to your forearms and made you feel like you'd earned your day. A shadow fell across my saw. I killed the motor. Rosemary stood at the edge of my driveway, holding a sealed envelope. Her hair was tied back, but not tight, like she'd stopped caring about perfect. "For you," she said. I wiped my hands on my apron and took it. Inside was a printed copy of her email thread with the HOA plus Samir's reply, short and reluctant. She watched my face for a reaction. I didn't give her a big one. I just nodded. "Thank you." Her shoulders eased like the word mattered more than she wanted to admit. "Also," she said, and pulled a folded sketch from her back pocket. "I need a paid favor." "Paid design work," she said. "Not charity." She unfolded the sketch. A clean plan for the community garden entrance. Samir had argued about that gate for months, like it was a national policy. "He called an emergency meeting tonight," Rosemary said. "He's saying my fence complaint was the first issue. Now he's claiming my oak tree is a public safety hazard. He wants a fine and removal." "An oak?" I asked. "He wants leverage," she said. I didn't miss the way her fingers pinched the paper. "I need you there," she continued. "You fixed his gazebo last year. He listens to you." He doesn't listen to me. I glanced at her sketch. The lines were confident, clean, a woman who knew her craft. What do I get? I asked. She didn't blink. I fix your backyard drainage. I saw the runoff line. It turns your side yard into a pond every storm. I stared at her. Her mouth curved a millimeter. I noticed things. The cicadas buzzed. My sawdust stuck to the sweat on my forearms. The meeting is at the community center, I said. 7, she replied. I'll be there, I said. The meeting at the community center was all fluorescent glare and power plays. Samir sat at the head of the folding table clipboard up like a shield, calling Rosemary's Oak a liability because it dropped acorns and the sidewalk had a crack. Rosemary's knee tapped under the table like a warning light. I kept my voice level and made it simple. The oak was healthy. The crack was from a bad pour and frost heave. If they cut the tree, the slope behind it would bleed soil into the storm drain the next hard rain. I slid my photos across the table, including the gazebo posts I'd replaced last year and the runoff path that fed the drain. Samir tried to hide behind bylaws. The board didn't want a flooded gazebo on record again. He swallowed his pride and dismissed the fine. Outside, Rosemary walked beside me, shoulder to shoulder, not reaching for me, not retreating either. The cicadas kept buzzing in the dark trees, but Samir's noise finally stopped. You didn't have to do that, she said. I did, I replied. She glanced at my face. Her expression softened, then steadied. Thank you. I nodded once. Don't give him an inch. I won't, she said. The next week was heat dust and momentum. I built walnut by day, then crossed the hedge to help her after. Rosemary tried to do the heavy work anyway, until I heard a crash and found her on the kitchen floor with a swelling wrist and shattered tile around her. She kept insisting she was fine, but her teeth were clenched and her hand trembled when she tried to grip the sledge. I iced it, checked her fingers, and took the hammer out of reach. Then I finished the demo myself, crack by crack, prying up tile until the subfloor showed clean and solid. In the crawl access, I tightened a sagging hanger and pointed out the flex point so the next tile job wouldn't fail. That night, with no chairs and no energy left for pride, we ate takeout pizza on the bare floor. The cicadas buzzed through the open window. Rosemary stared at the grease, spotting the cardboard, then finally let out a short, surprised laugh. He wanted a trophy, she said, eyes on the half-finished kitchen. I didn't make her say his name. She talked anyway and clipped sentences about divorce orders, frozen accounts, and a man who treated her success like competition. 2 days later, the first real outside pressure hit. A knock, sharp and official, rattled her front door. We both went still. Rosemary's head lifted. I'm not expecting anyone. I stood and moved toward the door without hurrying. Stay behind me. She did, but she stayed close enough that I could feel heat at my back. I opened the door. A man in a polo stood on the porch holding a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Home inspection, he said. Rosemary stepped into view and went pale. That's not scheduled. Complaint-driven, he replied. County protocol. I didn't look at Rosemary. I watched his hands. Show the notice, I said. He blinked. Excuse me, stamped notice. Case number, I said slower. He flipped the clipboard around. A form, but no seal, no case number, no officer name. Just typed lines and a blank signature. I held out my hand. Let me see it. He hesitated. That pause told me everything. You don't enter, I said. You don't have valid paperwork. His smile tightened. Ma'am, refusal can have... I'm not refusing, Rosemary said, voice steady. I'm requesting identification and proper documentation. Good. The man's eyes flicked toward the street, then back. I'll reschedule, he muttered. He walked off fast. Rosemary shut the door and leaned her shoulder against it like her legs had decided they were done. My ex used to hire people to check my work when he wanted to rattle me, she said, voice thin. I looked out the window and watched the Polo disappear around the corner. Tomorrow, I said, we install a camera and a motion light. Then you file a report? That costs money, she said. I have a spare camera, I replied. It costs me nothing. Her eyes narrowed, pride flaring. I lifted a hand. It's not charity. It's protection. The word landed. Her throat moved. That night, I mounted the camera under the porch soffit and aimed it at the driveway. Motion light on the corner. Proper anchors. No shortcuts. If someone shows up again, I said, stepping back to check the angle, we don't argue. We record. Rosemary stood beside me, wrist still wrapped. Thank you. I nodded once. Stay smart. The next day, I brought over a scrap of walnut and a piece of cedar. Rosemary was at the counter trying to sketch one-handed, her wrist braced on a rolled towel. I cut a light cedar base, shaped a smooth walnut armrest, and pinned it so the angle could adjust. When she set her forearm on it, her shoulder dropped. The pencil line went straight. Her smile showed for a second. 3 days later, the real paperwork arrived, in the most brutal way possible. A bright orange notice of default taped to her front door, stamped, dated, and public enough for Samir to weaponize. Rosemary called me from the curb, voice tight. Jake, there's a sticker on my door. I was already moving before she finished the sentence. When I pulled up, she stood on the porch staring at the orange paper like it had insulted her family. No tears, just anger held so tight it made her hands shake. It's public record now, she said. Anyone can see it. Anyone can talk. The air smelled like sun-warmed asphalt and leftover rain, that sharp mineral scent that always showed up after a storm. I read the notice. Case number, amount due, cure date, 20,000, I said. By Friday, she replied, or they file the next step. She turned her face away, jaw hard. My ex stopped paying the loan in his name, she said. The one secured by this property. He knew the accounts were frozen. He knew I couldn't just swipe a card and fix it. I looked at the work we'd done. The patched living room, the half-finished kitchen, materials stacked like a future. No, I said. Rosemary laughed, once bitter, and it died fast. Math is math. I have savings, I said. For a new shop. Her head snapped toward me. No, it's a loan, I said. Contract, interest, business terms. Her eyes flashed. I am not taking your money. I didn't plead. I didn't soften. Then we find another way, I said. Silence pressed between us. Rosemary stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint paint smudge on her thumb and the tired shadow under her eyes. Why are you even here? She asked, voice low. I held her gaze. Because I don't like bullies. And because Samir will use that orange paper like a weapon. Her breath caught. Her hand rose, touched my jaw, and stayed. Not an accident. Not a brush. A choice. I waited. Her fingers tightened once. That was the signal. I leaned in and kissed her. Not gentle, not careless. A kiss that tasted like sawdust and heat, and the decision to stop pretending we weren't building something. She grabbed the front of my t-shirt and pulled me closer. She kissed back harder, like she'd been holding it behind her teeth. When she broke away, her forehead hovered near mine. I can't, she said, breath unsteady. I can't take your money. If I lose this house, I drag you down. You don't drag me, I said. Her eyes tightened like she didn't want the comfort. Then the deadbolt clicked. She locked me out of her life the same way she locked her door. She shut me out for 3 days. I kept working, kept my hands busy. Late one night, I saw her car leave. By the third morning, an overnight envelope from Hawthorne Collective hit her porch, and she slid it inside without turning on a light. Friday morning, the porch wasn't silent. I heard voices. I looked up and saw Samir walking up Rosemary's driveway with his clipboard and a neighborhood security volunteer trailing behind him, hungry for an audience. A police cruiser rolled in behind them and parked at the curb. I dropped my coffee and crossed the street. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping onto Rosemary's walkway. Samir's face lit up like he'd been waiting all week. "Mr. Gomez." "Perfect. Officer, this is the neighbor I mentioned." The officer's expression stayed neutral. "Morning." Samir lifted his clipboard. "We have reason to believe this property is being unlawfully occupied. Foreclosure notice is posted. HOA bylaws require action to protect neighborhood standards. I requested an officer for safety." The officer glanced at the orange notice still taped to the door. "This is a civil matter," he said. "It becomes criminal if there's squatting," Samir insisted. I kept my voice even. "The owner lives here." Samir leaned closer, smug. "Does she? Her house is empty. No furniture. Looks abandoned. Maybe she's already fled." My jaw tightened. The officer looked at Samir. "Do you have proof of unlawful entry?" Samir opened his mouth, then shut it. The door clicked. Rosemary stepped out. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, hair loose. But her spine was straight and she held a sleek black portfolio like a shield. Samir smiled wider. "Ms. Adams, we need." "No," Rosemary said. One word. Flat, clean. She walked past Samir and stopped in front of the officer. "Officer," she said, and opened the portfolio. Inside were stamped documents and clean proof, a printed wire confirmation, a cashier's check receipt, and a bank letter acknowledging the cure funds. She handed the packet to the officer. "I cured the default," she said. "Certified funds. Wire confirmation is on page 2. The bank acknowledgement is page 3. Please note the HOA president is attempting to intimidate me based on a public notice." The officer scanned the top page, then the bank letterhead. His posture shifted. "This appears valid," he said. Samir's smile faltered. "That doesn't." The officer held up a hand. "Mr. Smith, if the default is cured, you have no grounds to claim unlawful occupancy. This is civil. Any continued harassment will be documented." Samir's face went red. I stepped forward one pace calm and aimed my words at the officer, not Samir. "Please record that the cure is complete," I said, "and that Mr. Smith initiated this call based on rumor, not evidence." The officer nodded and wrote. Samir's throat worked. "HOA bylaws don't override law," the officer said. That shut Samir up. The officer handed Rosemary her papers back. "You're good, ma'am. If anyone returns, call us. Keep your documents accessible." Rosemary nodded once. "Controlled. Thank you." The officer left. Samir didn't. He lingered like he wanted one last jab. Rosemary turned her head slightly. "Get off my property." Samir's eyes flicked to me. He wanted me to fight for her so he could call it aggression. I didn't bite. I just stood there solid between him and her front steps. Samir backed away, jaw tight, and marched down the walkway. When he was gone, the air changed. No audience, no performance. Just Rosemary, the heat, and my heartbeat slowing back down. "How?" I asked, voice low. Rosemary looked at the portfolio in her hands like it weighed more than paper. She swallowed and then met my eyes. "I called Hawthorne back," she said. The words landed like a hammer because I remembered the email printout the way she'd folded it like it was an insult. "They still wanted it," she continued. "My name, my portfolio rights, my brand." Her jaw tightened. "They wanted it cheap." "And you still did it," I said. "I did it," she replied, and her voice didn't shake. Because pride doesn't keep a roof. Because if Samir gets a foreclosure through this neighborhood, he owns me. Because my ex would love it. She looked down once, then back up. I didn't vanish to punish you, she added. I vanished because if you handed me money, I would have taken it and hated myself. I needed to do this with my own hands, even if it cost my name. I stared at her for a long beat. In my head, the easy line was, "You didn't have to." I didn't say it. Instead, I stepped closer and set my hand at her waist, steady. "You sacrificed the thing you were proud of," I said. Rosemary's throat moved. I sacrificed the version of myself that thought pride was the only safety. My fingers flexed once, careful. I respect that. Her eyes softened, then sharpened again. "I'm sorry I locked you out." "You were choosing yourself," I said. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been waiting to hear that. Then she lifted her chin. "But my kitchen still needs tile." I blinked. The corner of her mouth curved. "And I still can't pay a contractor." "I know a guy," I said. She looked up at me through her lashes, not shy, not coy, just honest. "Does he work for pizza?" "He does," I said. And maybe she added, voice lowering a notch, "Other things." I didn't grin like a kid. I kept my voice steady. "If you ask for them?" Rosemary's eyes warmed. "Good. Then we need grout." The next weeks moved the way real life does. Slow, specific, earned. We finished the kitchen properly. Thin set mixed to the right consistency. Trowel ridges even. Tile laid with spacers like discipline. Her wrist healed enough for light work, but I kept the arm support on the counter anyway. She used it when she drew late at night, when she drafted a new logo for her new firm that didn't carry her old name. The house filled piece by piece, not with expensive things, with solid ones. When the living room needed a sofa and she refused to buy something flimsy, I built one. Walnut frame, clean lines, tight joinery, a piece that could take life and not complain. The day I carried it in sawdust, clung to my shirt. The cicadas screamed outside like they had been there for the whole story. Rosemary ran her hand along the armrest, slow checking for truth. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's solid," I replied. Golden light poured through the window, the same color as the first day, but now it hit furniture instead of plywood. Rosemary reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. A new brass key. "I'm not selling it," she said. I stilled. "What? I'm not flipping the house." She continued, "I'm keeping it. I'm starting my new studio in the spare room. Small projects, clean contracts, no one holding the money." She took my hand and pressed the key into my palm. "And I want you to have this." "Rosemary," I said, slow, "I live next door." "I know," she whispered. "But I don't want a fence between us anymore. I want you to come and go as you please. I want us." She wasn't looking down. She was looking right at me, open, brave. I closed my fingers around the key. It felt warm. "Deal?" she asked, echoing that first disastrous day. I stepped in one hand, settling at her waist, steady and sure. I paused just long enough to see her nod. Then I kissed her. "Deal," I said against her mouth. We often think love is about finding someone to fix us, but real love is about finding someone who hands you the tools so you can fix yourself. Trust isn't about control or money. It's about believing in your partner's competence, even when things look messy. If you enjoyed seeing Jake and Rosemary build something real from the ground up, please like and subscribe. I've got more stories coming about finding love in unexpected places. Thanks for listening.